Sonja Farak. By Daniel Zoshin. Sonja Farak was a chemist that worked in the Massachusetts State Crime Laboratory in Amherst. She was found to have been stealing drugs from her lab that were turned in for evidence. It was said that she could have potentially affected over 10,000 cases. Along with that, she admitted to being on drugs such as cocaine, methamphetamine, and amphetamine while at work. Sonja Farak started stealing drugs from her lab in 2004 and continued until 2013. She was taking the drugs from the lab for personal use. She told her therapist that she was taking the drugs to help her focus and get through her work. She would take samples that were sent in, take some of the drugs and put another substance in its place. Robin Bowman states that ethics can be viewed as the general study of the ideals regarding human behavior and the guiding principles. Ethics are not meant to dictate actions, but to offer the tools and direction for dealing with situations. The goal of ethics is to protect the rights and needs of professions or groups when situations are not just black and white. Richard Hall says that for an action to be considered unethical, it has to hit 3 points. Has to involve misuse or abuse of duty. Be an intentional act. Self-motivated. So would Farak's actions be considered unethical? She abused her power as a lab analyst by taking the drugs that were sent in for evidence in a case. She knowingly took the drugs. She admitted to taking the drugs for personal gain. Who her actions impacted. Over 10,000 cases were said to be affected by her unethical behavior. That's over 10,000 potentially innocent people sitting in jail or criminals walking around on the street because of one woman's need for drugs. However, her actions don't only have an impact on people related to the cases. Image of forensic science. People trust forensics. Seen as the only truth behind investigation. With more cases like Farak coming out, society is slowly losing faith in forensic science. Downs and Swinton talk about this in their book when they say, the public expects the forensics practitioner to be beyond reproach. In fact, the public perception has portrayed that forensics world as infallible. The mere inclusion of the term forensic, the application of science to the law, or literally, to make public, has, at least in the eyes of some, apparently bestowed some magic property on the underlying science and practitioner, both civilian and professional. With the public having so much trust in forensic, why would they second-guess information that scientists like Farak released? The problem is that this wasn't the first time this had happened. Just years before it was found out that Farak had been stealing drugs, a woman named Annie Durkheim was also found guilty of unethical behavior. She also worked in a Massachusetts lab where she was arrested in 2012 for falsifying evidence. 300 convicted inmates were released after further investigation. What they did was unethical, right? Reports show that Farak wasn't addicted to drugs before she started working at the crime lab. She was tempted by how easy it was for her to be able to acquire the drugs that she needed. Is it the people's fault, or could the system be failing? What can be done? Standard guidelines need to be put into place that every lab has to follow so that everyone knows what's acceptable workplace behavior. This will ensure consistency among the various labs. Once set guidelines are put in place, they can now be monitored by an independent group to ensure standards are being adhered to. This will make it harder for someone to perform unethically. 2. Better hiring and review procedures for anyone that is going to be handling potential evidence in a case. Having an annual review of the standards expected in the lab random drug test to ensure that people aren't working on cases while on drugs. Give opportunities for employees to get anonymous help if they feel that they might be performing unethically so they don't cause more problems. 3. Constant and better training on lab procedures, so that people know exactly what is expected from them in the lab and the right way to get things done. To help people identify if co-workers might be showing signs of unethical behavior. Questions. Is it the people's fault, or is it the system that is failing? How can we catch people like Farak and Dukhan before they cause too much damage? Is there anything that can be changed that will prevent people from performing unethically? Is this hurting the image of forensic science?